Good morning, Glenjamin.
Good morning, Mike.
Have you taken your interval today?
I have. Why do you ask?
I just feel like you haven't.
What? Sense offender! Ah! The following podcast contains spoilers for Equilibrium. You have been warned. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glenn Warren. It's all serious business here. There's nothing to be joking about, because I cannot joke, I cannot laugh, I cannot feel emotion. I would say, along with your host, Michael Hicks, but he's currently dead. Or is he? There he is. What's up, everybody?
How's it going?
It's not bad. I took a little nap before this. I feel like I'm dying slowly. Do you not hurt
like
when you
Caitlin.
take short naps?
I don't. I feel great after I take short naps.
I feel terrible.
I took one after Caitlin got home, and I was just like, bam, feel good.
I think it's because my whole life, I never really napped.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when I do, and they're usually short, it's like, man, you feel terrible right now. I don't know. I gotta fix my body. I gotta punch it into positions. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, I'll cut right to the chase. I don't think I watched anything
You've
this
been
week.
disappointing me, man.
I've disappointed myself.
I've added stuff to our 2023 Stony shortlist, and you just haven't.
You have got to blame this goddamn game, Elden Ring. It's taking my whole life.
God damn it, Elden Ring.
God damn it, Elden Ring.
Stop existing.
But I do know you've got a pretty penny when it comes to watching some movies, so you gotta tell me all about it.
I watched a bit. I watched 10 movies, not as high as last week.
Not bad still.
First one was a rewatch, Star Wars Force Awakens. It's Star Wars Force Awakens.
It is.
Second one was Schindler's List. That's also a rewatch. Schindler's List.
Did you cry again this time or no?
Same exact part started to choke up, and I was like, get back in there, Tyr. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful movie and continues to be so. Then I watched Chungking Express. By the way, all three of these have been for the 1001 movies you must see before you die. Chungking Express, which is, I assumed from the title that it'd be like a police action movie, but it's actually a rom-com. Not your typical rom-com. It's unique in its own way. But I really enjoyed it. It's a great movie. It's a Chinese or Hong Kong film, Chinese film, whatever they prefer to be called. I'm not sure exactly what the nomenclature is there. But yeah, highly suggest that. Then I rewatched Tick, Tick, Boom because Caitlin wanted to watch it. Then I went to the Colonial Theater, watched two movies. The first one being The Worst Person in the World, a Norwegian film that is nominated for Best Foreign Film for the Oscars. It was not released technically in the United States other than festivals until 2022. So it could potentially be a Stony nominee next year.
Oh.
But yeah, great, fantastic film. Really, really enjoyed it. Exceeded my expectations, and they were already pretty high. Then I watched Cyrano because the Colonial Theater was showing it, and I was like, why not?
Yeah.
It is a musical, and funnily enough, like, you know me, I don't love musicals. I don't hate musicals. Usually, if a movie's a musical, I'm just like, okay, it's a musical. This one, it would have been great if it wasn't a musical. Like, it's bogged down by the songs.
A musical that would have been good if it wasn't a musical.
Exactly.
I love it.
It like the story obviously is Cyrano de Bergerac. It's an old French, I think it's French tale, maybe Italian, but it's one of the most famous classic romance stories, and fantastic when there's not singing. It's very inconsistent because like it's really good at some parts and then just really cringy at other parts.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not that like everyone has bad voices. It's just the lyrics are lacking.
Interesting.
The melodies are not that great. But otherwise, it's a fine movie. I just wish it wasn't. A musical. Then I watched Happiness, which is a movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman, in which he plays a person who calls up random women and masturbates while talking to them.
Oh,
Yeah.
so casual.
Yeah, this movie had been on my Netflix queue, my Netflix DVD queue for a very long time, and it was at the top, but it was said long wait, so it's been at the top
So
of my queue.
That was
for
that movie that I saw
Yeah.
when you posted it on Insta.
3 or 4 months, and unfortunately, this movie was slightly disappointing.
Yeah.
It is a dark, dark, dark comedy in which pedophilia is supposed to be kind of a joke. And I don't think it lands. Maybe in 1998 it did, but it does not land the same way it used to, if
Yeah.
that is the case. There are some funny parts to it. Like, I didn't hate it, but the worst part is that there is about 30 to 45 minutes of it that's just boring and unneeded. So it's like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie that should have been like an hour 40 tops. Which is, the worst offense other than making a joke out of pedophilia.
Yeah.
Which,
other than the sex
to its
offense.
credit, some of the things about pedophilia that they do are kind of funny. Not the act itself, but just like the surrealness of the conversations this guy has.
Yeah.
But not so much the act itself, obviously. But a disappointing movie. I was disappointed. I like Philip Seymour Hoffman in it, but I like him in everything. So, yeah, rest in peace, my dude.
R.I.P.
Then I saw Turning Red, which is a Pixar movie. Came out this past weekend on Disney Plus.
You jumped right on
enjoyed
that.
it. What?
Really?
Yeah,
So you
Caitlin
jumped
wanted to watch
right
it.
on that.
Yeah, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's it feels more like a Disney animated movie. I know that sounds stupid because Disney owns Pixar, but like Disney Animation Studios versus Pixar Studios, I feel like they've kind of swapped quality lately.
Yeah.
Which, it could just be because Pixar ran out of ideas, but this one was really good. It was fun. It was the characters were really fun. I had a good time watching it. It was really funny.
Okay.
So I do suggest Turning Red. It's not going to like blow anyone away, but it's a fun movie. It's a fun family movie. Then I rewatched Equilibrium, we'll get to in a second, and then I finished a mini series today called Landscapers with David Thewlis and Olivia Colman, which is based on a true story of these this English couple who were arrested for the murder of the wife's parents, and it's told in a very surreal way where like she's obsessed with films and everything, so it'll just cut to like very staged things.
Yeah.
There's one part where like when the cop decides what is interrogating her and decides to tell her what she thinks happened, they like walk off the set, they walk past cameras and the crew and everything and walk to another set. It's really creative with stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic miniseries.
Is that Landscapers?
Landscapers. It's on HBO Max. Highly suggest people check that out. But yeah, that's all I watched this week. We're going to get to Equilibrium in just a second, but we have to acknowledge a fallen, talented man. William Hurt passed away yesterday. Today's the 14th of March. He passed away the 13th of March. I believe it was pancreatic cancer. He had been suffering with that for a while, but he was one of my favorite actors, and still is. I mean, obviously, I can still enjoy his works, but he's a great loss of talent. Seemed to be working right up to, as long as he could. Because last year he was in an episode of a TV show. I'm trying to find the name. I forget the name, even though I love it. Oh, he's not even credited for it. Oh, Mythic Quest. It's Rob McElhaney's show.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
in that.
A lot of his roles lately were just like the Marvel stuff because they're probably really easy. He just stands there and he's just intimidating.
And in Mythic Quest, he was a man who was dying that was making amends. And I didn't know he was sick when I watched that, so that brings like a whole new depth to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a great talent, and I personally am going to miss seeing him in the movies. But
I think we all. And
Yeah.
if we don't, there's something wrong with you.
there is something wrong with us. So rest in peace, William Hurt. You will be missed.
Absolutely.
And without any further ado, let's get into Equilibrium.
Cleric, I can only hope one day to be as uncompromising as you. family, man.
Yes, sir, a boy and a girl.
Don't move! Don't move! This is a lawful entry. We have a warrant for your wife's arrest.
Remember me.
In the oppressive future where all forms of feeling are illegal, a man in charge of enforcing the law rises to overthrow the system and state.
Ooh. Written and directed by Kurt Wimmer or Vimmer. Did not check up to see what it was pronounced. If he's American, it's probably Wimmer. If not, it's Vimmer. Is starring Christian Bale, Sean Bean for literally like 2 scenes, Emily Watson, Taye Diggs, Dominic Purcell, Sean Pertwee, William Fitchner, and Angus McFadden. And yeah, this is what everyone thinks is a Matrix ripoff. But other than like the techno soundtrack and the style of the police officers, there's not really much connecting the two.
In the weird gun fu type stuff. He
gun
kind
kata.
of the ridiculous gun movements he just does for no reason.
It's not no reason. I didn't realize this the first time I watched it, but there's this one scene where they're training people, and they have like this equation, and the guy's like explaining why gun kata is logically and mathematically the best way of fighting with guns, and it's like a dance that you memorize, and it's going to work 100% of the time, which is a little far-fetched, obviously. But it's so it is. I guess it is no reason, but I just realized
I think they
said that.
they overdid how much he moved.
Yeah.
Where, like, if it was to make sense, it'd be, like, fine. Like, just, like, a normal... But it was just overly done, and this dude's just swaying around, flipping and everything. Like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could definitely see where the comparison is between this and The Matrix, but overall, it's, I mean, not really at the same time.
It's really, if you just look at the poster, you'd be like, oh, that looks like The Matrix. And then that's it. But it's more different than I remembered, because I watched this probably for the first time like 10 years ago. So it was like I remembered it, but just barely. And it's a lot more fun than I remember it being. Like, it is, I might be in like a different place in my life where like I'm more open to stupid action movies than I was, in film school, trying to learn about the best films and maybe shunning some of those stupid ones that I liked so much. But this was your first time watching it, correct?
It was.
It is.
This was always one that I had kind of wanted to watch. It was like on the back burner of ever watching. And I knew this got a lot of flack for people thinking it was basically Matrix, so I never actually got around to just like watching it. But after, we just watched the Matrix movies not that long ago, and honestly, besides some of the things we named, there really is not much of a comparison besides music, the gun kata, and just the leather. It's really it. Because like the concept of this movie is actually really good.
It is. It's very reminiscent. It's kind of like a combination of 1984, Fahrenheit 451, all those dystopian movies. It could possibly take place in the same world as those dystopian films, but yeah, it really surprised me this time around how much I enjoyed it, because I definitely think I shut it out the last time. There were some like silly things in there, like when in the first raid that they do, they find the Mona Lisa, and then they have a person authenticate it, and then they burn it. There's like, why did you have to authenticate it if you were just gonna burn it anyway?
Pretty much.
Like it's stupid things like that.
I didn't even think about that at all.
Like they have this guy, they pay someone to come authenticate paintings.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, burn it. It was like, well, you're going to burn it anyway. So
yeah, you're literally going to burn it no matter what it is.
Devil's advocate here, maybe they just wanted to make sure it was the Mona Lisa. But, in a world where art is banned, I feel like people wouldn't really care so much if it was a copy or not.
Yeah, literally no matter if it's real or fake, it's getting burned or destroyed in some sort of way.
And another thing, I don't know if you'd realize this, but in the scene where Sean Bean is shot through the book into the head. Did you notice in that above shot how obvious it was that was his stunt double and not him?
I was pretty far away, but I had imagined that it was. Yeah,
It was like a whole different dude.
it was just a huge splatter of paper. I guess it was.
Yeah,
too.
they probably
damn.
had like an explosive, so they wanted him to stay away. But there are some things in this that were kind of chilling. The thing that creeped me out the most was his son, who for the longest time you think is like very brainwashed in part of the Provium, army, where he's asking if he should report his friend who was crying, his child friend who was crying, stuff like that. And when the penalty for having any emotion is just straight death. Like there is no you're thrown in jail and forced to take Provium. Like no, you're dead. And there's the parts where the son was questioning his dad's loyalty or whatever, and he's kind of like talking down to him. And I just wrote, if my son ever spoke to me the way he does, I'd tackle that little Nazi. But then later on, when you realize it was all been an act, and he just wanted to make sure his dad was not one of them before doing that, I said, okay, I said I would tackle him, but that was before I knew he was a genius accomplice.
Yeah, homie should have got definitely an acting award there.
Oh, absolutely.
In that world.
I was like, that is Nazi 101 if I've ever seen it.
Yes, sir.
But it's a fun movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I just remembered it from when I last watched it 10 years ago that it was very brooding. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the point. Like it's brooding.
Yeah, they're taking these pills to just not feel emotion at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is the whole, but then the whole halfway through, not even halfway, like after Sean Bean gets clapped, which is a huge surprise. That's when like it starts opening up to all the emotions and everything, and really starts getting good.
Yeah,
because Christian Bale, you definitely see how he got Batman in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
He really kind of did everything. The brooding,
everything but the voice. Yeah.
Yeah, the voice was just in the background waiting. Mm-hmm. He had it ready.
This was, I believe, this was shot in Berlin. Let me shot in Berlin, which is kind of, I guess it's not surprising because like before I saw it was shot in Berlin, I was gonna be like, man, they really like designed these sets to look like they were part of a fascist government. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is from a fascist government. That's why it seems that way. Because most of it was shot in Berlin, and then some Italy as well. But it's a great looking movie as far as like creating a futuristic world goes. Mm-hmm. But with sci-fi futuristic worlds, there's always like small details they overlook. Like there's a scene where Taye Diggs comes up. He drives up in a car to pick up Christian Bale, and there's just keys in the ignition. Mm-hmm. And so like everything's futuristic except for keys, which to someone who's just kind of trying to create a futuristic world would probably not be that big of a deal. But most new cars nowadays have like keyless entry and keyless start. So just for some reason, the keys swinging in the ignition just distracted me a lot. I'm like, this car is not new.
You telling me when he shot the monitors and not the PCs themselves when it turned off all the that didn't bother you?
Well, I mean, if this, I don't know how PC there are Macs that the computer, the actual like operating system is in the monitor, not in a tower. I don't know if there's PCs like that, but
there's not too many PCs themselves that.
Were there towers, like computer towers in that room?
I mean, there was no towers. I mean, directly in that scene, all you saw was the monitors, and he shot the monitors, and it shut down all live, I guess, streaming of him, the father talking to everybody. But I just saw him shoot the monitors. I was like, that's not how that works, bro.
If they were IMAX, it would be.
Yeah.
But I was more in that moment thinking like, kind of going off of that. I was kind of like, is that where it's being broadcast from? Mm-hmm. Because that's just like computer screens. That's not necessarily where it's being broadcast from. So yeah, I did kind of have that thought, just not in the exact verbiage that you did.
Yeah.
But another funny thing that when they do the raid on Mary, played by Emily Watson, they do the raid on her house, and then they knock down her wall to get to that room that has all the contraband in it. Surely there was a door to that room.
There had to be. First
There
off, those
had
guys
to
are
be a
really fucking strong because they were using crowbars to knock through concrete, it looked like. I was like, holy hell, go
It
ahead.
was probably just styrofoam.
No
really, but
emotions and all muscle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, when you don't have emotion, your brain, it's kind of like when you cut off one sense, your other senses are enhanced. So when you cut off your emotions, your muscles, it's
all
science.
coming- it's all coming
science.
together.
Yeah, but like the entire time, they're talking about like you can't be emotional, but literally everyone who says you can't be emotional is super angry all the time.
Yeah. Especially the father. I don't know if the father was taking the Provium or not, but he was getting angry at Christian Bale's character for not finding like the mole. I mean, even though he knew.
Yeah,
But-
and Tay Diggs was getting angry too. I'm like,
Yeah.
So apparently, anger, which is the only emotion that starts a war, it's the only emotion that is not outlawed. That's interesting.
Even though in the beginning they were talking about all of it. Anger, emotion, or anger, rage, all that. Yeah, it was very, very goofy. Like, I'm surprised. I don't know when they exactly said, like, when they started taking the Provium and how long it had been since they had started taking it and there had been no wars. But there's clearly a little civil resistance war going on.
That was another thing. That was like, clearly, these people are so anti-war. It's kind of like Peacemaker. Like, I love peace. I don't care who I have to kill to
I'll
obtain.
kill anybody to do it. But like at that point, like if there are resistance, like right. I mean, obviously we wouldn't have this movie without this part. But if there are resistance, how is there not some form of like control over all these people to make them take their intervals and stuff like that instead of just trusting that they would?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. This whole industry of government just not making their people do that and just trusting that they would kind of. I was like, how does that work? And then now you've got a civil war going on.
You have no problem. Like, instead of like swarming them to execute them, swarm them, tackle them, inject them.
Yep.
Surely that would cost less money. But it's it's a really fun movie. I had fun with it. The final gun battle sequence and sword sequence is so over the top that it's just a solid 5 to 10 minutes of nothing but fun, violence, and gore. Tay Diggs gets his face cut off.
Dude, I felt so bad for Tay Diggs, man. He was great in this movie.
Yeah, he was.
But like they ramped up this whole like, friction between him and Christian Bale, and then right at the end he's like, all right, don't fuck up my suit. And then just gets his face chopped off. Like I was expecting some sort of good katana fight. Nope.
Well, yeah, I kind of like that. I like
it was cool. I just thought he was going to be a little bit more badass than just.
It might be because of Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I love build-ups to fights that just end right away. I don't know why. It's a fun thing that never gets old for me. But did you notice after Christian Bale killed everyone, including DuPont, who is like the father guy? Did you notice they had Tay Diggs' face just lying on the ground, and it was literally just like a JPEG that they cropped out everything but his face and just put it on the ground?
No, I didn't notice.
I'm gonna have to send you the picture I took because it is hilarious. But I just started dying when I watched it. I'm gonna send it to you now so you can react to it in real time. But you're gonna have to zoom in. It's towards the bottom right of that fascist symbol thing. Once you do get it. But yeah, like it's like it was just an afterthought. Like they're like, oh,
there's
right,
just
we cut his
sticker on
face
the
off.
ground.
Not only that, but it's behind him.
Yeah.
Assuming that's his feet, just below it. I know this is a podcast and no one listening can see this.
Yeah.
But just watch the final scene. It's like the last shot before he leaves,
That's funny.
And it's just a JPEG of Taye Diggs' face with completely incorrect lighting. I died laughing. I rewound that
Yeah.
5
I had
times
not
before
seen
taking that picture
That's
because
too
I
funny.
could not believe it. But yeah, it's a dumb movie. It's fun though. That's
Yeah.
all we can ask for. It's got, while it is dumb, it does have things to say about like how people view emotions and how, emotions are kind of the basis of humanity and everything. And it's noble for taking that in such a weird, goofy movie. But I commend Kurt Wimmer or Wimmer. I'm never gonna know how to pronounce his name.
I just assume it's Wimmer.
Yeah, let's go with that, Kurt Wimmer. But yeah, it's I had fun with it, and I don't really have anything else to say.
Yeah, no, I did too. More than I thought I would.
Yeah.
I kind of liked how short of a time Sean Bean was in this movie. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, Sean Bean. And then he, obviously gets put down. And I'm like, all right. Now, speaking of getting put down, I felt so bad when the dog. We tried to pick a movie where the dogs
didn't
get shot.
And then they kill like 20 dogs.
Obviously, it's like off screen, but you're hearing like the dogs whining.
Yeah. And then they show
watching that
the
part,
dog.
like, oh, Mike.
Oh, seriously, I could watch a movie, assuming it's not based on reality like Schindler's List. I could watch a movie where people are just massacred and not feel any kind of emotion. But you kill an imaginary dog, even in like a cartoon, I'm like, you son of a bitch.
Why'd you have to do it, you bastard?
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I really got to say. It's a good movie.
I do too.
Yeah. So that does it for our review. That brings us to the judgment. As always, it has to be unanimous decision whether or not it goes on the KFR movie shelf. Becomes a little shelf boy, if you will, with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. I'm going to go first because this was a streaming roulette, so it doesn't really matter who goes first. If you asked me before I rewatched it, I probably would have said no. But rewatching it in my current state where I'm able to separate artistic films and just good, fun action sci-fi films, I really enjoyed it. It's a lot better than I remembered it being, and I kind of wish I enjoyed it more 10 years ago. But it's a fun movie. I can't say anything worse than that. It's a nice, fun movie. So for that reason, I'm going to put it on the shelf.
All right. I think the biggest flaw I did have with this movie is that it is kind of a victim of the 2000s.
Yes,
like
I would agree with that.
Especially after Matrix, with the sound. Honestly, if it had a different soundtrack, I think it would have been exceptionally better.
I'm 90% sure that this soundtrack is actually used in the DVD piracy ad. Mm-hmm. Like that.
You wouldn't steal a DVD.
Yeah.
I mean, other that being the biggest flaw is that it's a victim of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Other than that, I had a lot of fun with this movie, more than I expected. And I didn't expect to want to put it on the shelf. But here we are today, sitting here with no emotions, talking about it. I would say too. Absolutely.
Do you think they have a sex offender registry? They just kill them. They don't need a registry.
They just murder them. They don't have to put it down.
Yes. So Equilibrium goes onto the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. That brings us to next week's assignment. We are back at square one of our little roundabout. It is my turn to pick the film. I am going to pick a movie that I started to watch with my friend Danny. Danny doesn't listen to the podcast because he's a son of a bitch.
How dare you, Danny?
Listen to this one and be like,
hey. This singular one.
But we started to watch it when I was still living with my parents in my parents' basement. It was a nice, cool 64 degrees. And I don't know if you know what 64 degree means. Do you know what that means?
Very crisp.
I'm falling asleep if it's 64 degrees. 64 degrees is the best sleeping temperature. So we started to watch it, and I fell asleep.
Bastard.
And Danny, to his credit, did not just go home. He watched the whole thing, even though he had already seen it, and he only put it on for me to watch it.
Yeah.
But, I had no problem with what I saw in this movie. 64 degrees. I can't. It's rated 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Like, come on. Anyway, I digress. It is a film on Netflix from 1993, and it is. I know you have seen it. It's called Last Action Hero.
I actually started watching this recently again.
Yeah.
But I never finished it because I fell asleep.
Was it 64 degrees?
It probably was, to be honest. It's the curse.
I'm telling you, 64 degrees, especially if you have a blanket, is the best temperature to fall asleep in. I have not done my science, but I'm willing to fight to the death to anyone who disagrees. Anyway, Last Action Hero on Netflix. With the help of a magic ticket, a young movie fan is transported into the fictional world of his favorite action movie character. It is directed by John McTiernan, written by Zach Penn, Adam Leff, and Shane Black. Ooh, Shane Black, who he did Nice Guys and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He's also in the movie The Predator, the first one.
Yeah.
And also he directed Iron Man 3, which I know many people don't like, but you know, that's that. But yeah, written by them, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, F. Murray Abraham, Art Carney, Charles Dance, Tom Noonan, Frank McRae. I'm trying to find the kid because he's apparently one of the big characters. I'm assuming it's Danny. That's why Danny likes it so much. The kid's name is Danny.
It's all
who's
coming
played by
together.
Austin O'Brien. Ian McKellen's in there. A whole bunch of people. Jim Belushi, Chevy Chase. It's a little fun family affair going on here.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make sure that my room is not 64 degrees when I watch this again. But yeah, that's going to be on Netflix, and it is Last Action Hero.
All right.
And frankly, I'm excited to watch it again because I
should
wanted to
be.
watch it, but 64 degrees.
That bastard 64 degrees, man.
Holy cow! I'm in the movie!
Who the hell are you?
Don't shoot me! I'm Danny Madigan, I'm a kid.
And you're going with him.
Who is this twerp, and where is that smile on his face?
I don't even know this kid. To a world that's bigger than life
This ticket is magic, and it really works.
and better than real.
You really believe that you're inside a movie, don't you?
Yes! The bad guys are in there. I've seen it on screen.
Could I speak to the drug dealer of the house, please? Have a nice day.
Have him killed.
Yes, so that is our assignment for next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, you can check out our website at www.keystonefilmreview.com. On Instagram, we are Keystone_Film_Review, Twitter, Keystone_Film, Facebook, Keystone Film Review, YouTube, Keystone Film Review, TikTok, Keystone Film Review, and on Letterboxd, I am Mike KFR.
And I am Glenn KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we get transported into a movie. Unless it's 64 degrees, in which case we're going to sleep
I'm going to sleep through that transported movie.
again and watch Last Action Hero. Another Arnold movie. 2 Arnold movies in like 4 months.
I'm down for it.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.